para professores de inglês de escolas públicas. Eu fiz 2 módulos e também fiz um curso online, que é Teaching English for Teens, e me ajudou muito, né? Foi um curso de 5 semanas oferecido pela Universidade de Maryland. E atualmente faço parte do MOOC, de TESOL Methodology. O MOOC ele está em andamento, né? Eu estou gostando muito, são temas interessantíssimos, super atuais e que contemplam muito o currículo do Distrito Federal. Inclusive eu uso os materiais também, né? São livros que estão disponíveis no site, dinâmicas que também estão disponíveis. Os próprios materiais teóricos também eles fornecem muitas ideias, né, de como utilizar. E isso, de uma forma geral, acaba resultando em aulas melhores e produzem projetos também, né? Com os estudantes.
Pode começar.
Bom dia, pessoal. Good morning, everybody. Before I get started, I would like to say this in Portuguese. Sejam todos bem-vindos para esta conferência de formação de professores de inglês. Quero, antes de qualquer coisa, dizer que me senti extremamente desafiado quando foi aberta a chamada do Escritório Regional de Língua Inglesa para a realização de um projeto virtual como esse, para professores tão especiais e excêntricos que são os professores de inglês. Jennifer, valeu. Ao Centro de Formação, porque aposta na formação e sua vocação é para o preparo por excelência de profissionais de cada área, professores também de inglês. Professora Lucília e professor Damião, que legal, muito bom, muito obrigado. A todos os envolvidos, em especial a Bárbara, Jennifer, Alexandra, Chris e a Fábrica de Gênios, que pensaram nos mínimos detalhes. Now let's move on. Thank you to each and every one of you for being here with us today. We are very pleased to be able to welcome all of you that decided to separate this day and join the program we planned carefully for you. During the next 8 hours, we'll be learning about different topics and exploring the tools to support your teaching activities in times of crisis, as well as having a better understanding of strategy for teaching online. The program includes a panel, a keynote, and 7 workshops from the English language specialists and teacher trainers. We look forward to sharing the best practical experiences and lesson learned from our language specialists and workshop facilitators that will share some practical tools and ideas about how to make online classes more effective for language learning, as well as receiving an inspired message from the keynote speaker, which I am sure will uplift our spirit in these unusual times. It is high time that such an event takes place to highlight the remarkable contribution that our fellow educators make in different educational contexts, revealing the diversity of which this teaching strategy may be utilized. Our hope is that as you leave this virtual conference, you will have a renewed energy and a spirit to teach. On the other hand, the conference will offer an excellent opportunity for you to meet the Relo Brazil director Jennifer, the deputy director Elmara, the English language specialist Barbara Noel, and the teacher trainers. For this online version, we bring to you the theme Creating a New Normal in Learning: Relate, Reaffirm, and Reimagine. We hope you have a very inspirational experience during this teacher training day. And thank you, Alexandra.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you, Raimundo. So we are very, very happy to have all of you here with us today. So I'd like to say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, because we have people from different cities here in Brazil and also from different countries in the world. So welcome, everyone. As Raimundo said, the Teacher Training Day was thought to be a moment to bring teachers together to learn from each other. Okay, so everything was planned carefully to give us the opportunity to learn a little bit more about how to be the teacher this moment we are facing require us to be. So we hope that this day will be a very productive day that we learn together. So welcome again and good learning. Now we have uh, Professor Damião from Cefap, Centro de Formação. He will talk a little bit to you. Professor Damião.
Muito bom dia a todos e todas. Eu gostaria de iniciar essa minha fala parabenizando o professor Raimundo pelo esmero, pela capacidade de liderar e de empreender esses processos de formação. Como bem disse ele, o Centro de Formação, órgão da Universidade Estadual, só se realiza, só se materializa, só acontece quando opera processos formativos como esse, ainda que numa conjuntura epidêmica, pandêmica, que nos força distante estarmos próximos via as redes sociais, via internet. Mas teria que inicialmente dizer, porque faz parte da minha formação ética, educacional e política, dizer da nossa tristeza pelas quase 100 mil famílias que perderam um ente querido vítima da Covid-19. Também da nossa tristeza pela explosão de Beirute, que já matou mais de 150 pessoas, com quase 5 mil feridos. E ao Piauí, que já tem mais de 1.400 pessoas sofridas chorando por alguém que morreu. Seja um irmão, um primo, a mãe ou mesmo um pai que terá o dia de amanhã, o dia de sua celebridade, o dia de sua festa. Mas assim, abraçando a todos, ao Raimundo, a Jennifer, a Alexandra, a professora Maria Eldelita, com uma perspectiva muito importante de sustentar aqui em nossa fala, em nome do professor Vinícius, da professora Lucília, do nosso reitor Noga, 4 ideias-forças, que são ideias-forças que nos movem enquanto educadores, que nos movem enquanto pessoas que fazem do processo formativo a nossa dinâmica de vida. A primeira ideia-força é da interdependência. Todos nós dependemos de tudo e de todos. E a única relação de sobrevivências vem exatamente pela possibilidade de estarmos conectados. Dizia um professor meu que nós chegamos aqui e a Terra já existia. Então, nós aqui chegamos, a Terra já estava. Então, que nós cuidemos de nossa Terra para indicar a nossa segunda ideia-força, a ideia de sustentabilidade. Não é possível que façamos a vida acontecer sem que ela se sustente, em que ela se sustente uns em relação aos outros. E disso eu indico a nossa terceira ideia-força, que é fundamental aqui para nós, que é a ideia da empatia. Todos nós estamos agora vendo, em momentos de pandemia, que empresas concorrentes se tornam solidárias umas com as outras para ajudar as outras pessoas. Então, interdependência, empatia, solidariedade são ideias-forças que nós aqui no Cefap certamente alimentamos, porque acreditamos que somente a partir dessas ideias-forças a gente vai manter aquilo que é fundamental, que é a formação, que é a transformação com ética e, sobretudo, com respeito, para que, fundamentalmente, a nossa educação se torne cada vez melhor, cada vez mais transformadora, cada vez mais reflexiva e, fundamentalmente, como sempre propõe o nosso colega Raimundo, em suas intervenções, em suas ações pedagógicas, num processo contínuo reflexivo de formação. Sejam todos bem-vindos. O Cefap é esta casa sempre aberta, sempre disposta a que a gente consiga transformar para que a nossa educação seja, de fato, o vetor que aproxima que diminui esforços e não que distancia. Muito obrigado, todos um bom dia, um excelente dia de treinamento para os professores de inglês.
Obrigado, professor Damião. Jennifer.
Bom dia. Good morning. It's wonderful to be with all of you in Piauí, especially in Teresina, but also from around the world this morning. It's a lovely way to spend a Saturday with the Center for Teacher Training, Antonio Freire, with UESP, with wonderful supporters of education like Raimundo, Alexandra, Professor Damião, and all of the others who've made this day possible. It's really wonderful to spend a Saturday with the kinds of people that are at the very heart of the work that we do at the Regional English Language Office, that is English language teachers, and particularly future teachers and public school teachers, talking about a theme that is so important right now. What is the new normal? How do we go forward? How do we make sure that we're reaching every learner in a way that enables them to grow and to thrive? How do we make sure that we're not just reaching those with internet, but also those that don't have access? And so I think today is going to be an important discussion and presentations about topics that could not be more important than they are right now, as in Brazil and the world over, we decide how education can go forward and what it means to be an educator in this moment, what kind of resilience and community that we need to be strong educators working together to make what we believe is important happen. So I want to share with you a quotation that I have come across many years ago, but I shared recently and it spoke to me, and I think it will speak to you as well. There is an educator in the United States. Her name is Colleen Wilcox, and she has worked in some of the biggest education systems that we have in the United States, in Chicago, Los Angeles, Tucson, Arizona. And she says that teaching is the greatest act of optimism. I'm going to repeat that because it's really good. So Colleen Wilcox says, teaching is the greatest act of optimism. In this moment, I know we're surrounded by a group of people who are optimistic about the possibilities of teaching remotely, about the possibilities of learning in the middle of a global pandemic that we've never seen before. And I think that optimism is important. It's important because it pulls us together and it enables us to believe in each other and to believe in our students. And so I agree with Colleen Wilcox, and I want to leave with you as an opening to our day. This is an optimistic day, looking forward for all kinds of solutions and learning together. So teaching is the greatest act of optimism. Here in the Regional English Language Office, we work with the US Embassy and the consulates in Brazil. We also are optimistic about teaching, mainly because we know there are wonderful English teachers and great support for English teaching at universities and secretariats across the whole country, but especially in Piauí. And it's our pleasure today to support this kind of event because it's providing resources for teachers. English is important to us because we know it's one of the ways that we can bridge our two cultures by sharing expertise and learning opportunities, by exposure to English language specialists like Barbara Noel, who you'll meet shortly, as well as specialists here in Brazil that teach us about how the world is dealing with the pandemic and teaching. English is a way to open so many doors. It's not just learning a language. I think it's a lot more. There are educational possibilities to study elsewhere, mobility, exchanges, but there also are workforce implications for your students who have a lot more opportunity if they have English to work in different kinds of places, have conversations with different kinds of people. And it's one of the ways that our countries can connect is through learning language, both English and Portuguese. And so it's really, really important and at the very center of what we do in the US mission here in Brazil. So to finish, I just want to wish you a wonderful experience. There are many resources from the Regional English Language Office. All of them are free and available to anyone who's an English teacher who is interested in English. You can look at our website. But one of the best resources we have is the English Language Specialist Program. And so you'll encounter today our virtual English language specialist, Barbara Noel, who's an American specialist who works in the field of English language teaching, who'll be sharing her experiences in the US and in other countries and providing some insights as to how you might think about going forward in this new normal and new time. If you'd like to know more about our office, there'll be a workshop this afternoon. If you miss it, it's okay, because all of the information is freely available, and we would love to see you as part of our community, a community of teachers talking to each other about what matters in each and every moment. So I encourage you to be in touch, and more than anything, I wish you a wonderful day in which you focus on the fact that teaching is the greatest act of optimism, as Colleen Wilcox says. So I wish you a wonderful day, a wonderful conference, lots of learning, and lots of collaboration and connections. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Alexandre. Thank you, Professor Damian. And I would like to use these few minutes we have to show you the whole program. And I would like to tell that after this introduction, we will have the panel with Barbara, Vanya, Professor Vanya, and Aldalita. But I'm gonna show you the program, the whole program for you. So after this presentation, we are going to have the panel English language after the pandemic. How is the pandemic affecting teaching and learning? We have Professor Dr. Barbara Noel, Professor Dr. Vania Barbosa, Professor Dr. Eudalita Franco, and the moderator will be Chris Hall that will you'll be hosting our guests. After that, we have a break of 10 minutes for you to have some juice or a glass of water. And we have our keynote address, Creating a New Normal in Learning, Relate, Reaffirm, and Reimagine with Barbara Noel. So for this morning, we have two activity, and I hope you enjoy each one. Uh, but in the afternoon, we have the workshop, the expected workshop, and you have to choose one because you are have going to have concurrently workshops, two blocks of two. For example, from 2 to 3 p.m., we have workshop Constructing Your New Online Toolkit. What's your personal tipping point with Barbara Noel? But we have also the workshop 10 Awesome Open Free Teaching Tools from Relo Brazil with Jennifer and Elmara de Moraes. We have a break of 10 minutes and we return with two new workshops. Uh, workshop number 4, sorry, workshop number 3, creating digital books with students with Flávio Martins da Silva, and workshop number 4, integrating web tools to promote speaking remote class with Renato Pacheco. Another break of 10 minutes, and we have the workshop number 5, augmented reality in the EFL classroom with Luciano Barroso. And we sorry that the workshop number 6 was canceled, but at 7:30 we have the workshop number 7, interactive classroom during pandemic time with Mario Eduardo, and workshop number 8, how to create tests using Google Form with Cesar Bansis. So I hope you enjoy all the ones you choose, and the link will be available close to the workshop presentation. So you stay online on YouTube, that the links will be available in the group, the WhatsApp group that were created for this purpose. So enjoy the conference, and now we have a pause of 5 minutes to start the panel discussion. Thank you so much, folks.
de TESOL Methodology. O MOOC ele está em andamento, né? Eu estou gostando muito, são temas interessantes. Eu tive acesso aos cursos, né, os programas de desenvolvimento profissional, que é o programa de desenvolvimento para professores de inglês de escolas públicas. Eu fiz 2 módulos e também fiz um curso online, que é Teaching English for Teens, e me ajudou muito, né? Foi um curso de 5 semanas oferecido pela Universidade de Maryland. E atualmente faço parte do MOOC de TESOL Methodology. O MOOC ele está em andamento, né? Eu estou gostando muito, são temas interessantíssimos, super atuais e que contemplam muito o currículo do Distrito Federal. Inclusive eu uso os materiais também, né? São livros que estão disponíveis no site, dinâmicas que também estão disponíveis. Os próprios materiais teóricos também eles fornecem muitas ideias, né, de como utilizar. E isso, de uma forma geral, acaba resultando em aulas melhores e produzem projetos também, né? Com os estudantes.
Tá ao vivo já.
Pronto. Agora.
Okay. Hello and welcome to our online teacher training day, and thank you for joining us. My name's Chris Hall. I'm originally from England, and I now live in Terracina and work at CFAF as an assistant English professor. We're very privileged to now open the panel discussion entitled How the World Pandemic Has Affected Both Teaching and Learning. We're very lucky to be joined by 3 very experienced and renowned English professors working for a combined total of over 100 years, but they've asked me to keep that quiet, so don't tell anybody. And also across Brazil, America, and Latin America. This roundtable discussion is designed so that you can interact in real time. So please get thinking, and I'll read some of your questions and points out at the end from the YouTube and Zoom chat. Please also tell us which speaker you would like to answer your points. So without further ado, I'd like to offer a warm welcome and invite our first speaker to the virtual podium, Dr. Barbara Noel. Dr. Noel earned her PhD from George Mason University, Virginia, and has taught for various universities in the US and in Latin America. She's been teaching, consulting, coaching, developing curriculum, conducting action research, and training local and international teachers with the US and in Latin America for over 28 years. She's worked as a consultant with the US State Department and Ministries of Education in Bolivia and Costa Rica. Please welcome Dr. Barbara Noel.
Thank you, Chris. I'm so honored to be here today, and I love working with Brazilian educators. You have such a wonderful attitude and go for it spirit. And so we are here to be talking about what we've learned about teaching and learning during this pandemic. And once again, your spirit has bubbled up again. So we will be talking about that. First of all, let's talk about what we all experienced, that it was not really online learning, rather it was and still is crisis teaching. Therefore, we truly need to salute our teacher heroes for showing up and quickly changing everything about their job in a matter of days. We educators courageously stepped up and made sure teaching and learning continued in one way or the other. So we're just as heroic as the frontline hospital employees, store cashiers and delivery workers, parents trying to manage the crisis at home, and so many other people that have stepped up during this crisis. So first and foremost, we need to salute ourselves and each other for diving into that deep, dark waterhole of online learning and keeping ourselves afloat. Learn we did and continue to, and that is why we're here today. Please keep in mind, as I list what is known so far about how student achievement has been affected by the pandemic. So keep in mind that we were in crisis teaching and will continue to be for the foreseeable future. So I will speak to statistics coming from the United States educational system. I imagine that some of these statistics might sound familiar to you as well. Many of the same issues are being faced around the world in terms of education. So there are several variables that have impacted and will continue to impact student achievement in the foreseeable future. These variables are quality of instruction, access to the internet, as Jennifer mentioned earlier, degree of engagement, the levels of support at home, socioeconomic status, and race. After briefly describing these variables, we will look at some potential responses. According to the McKinsey report that just came out called Learning in the US During COVID, student achievement can be described through three possible scenarios when we consider quality of instruction. That's the first variable. The first group of students are the ones that were receiving average quality instruction, and they continue to learn even during the crisis, but at a slower rate than before the pandemic. So average quality of instruction that continues online. This slower rate can possibly lead to a loss of 3 to 4 months progress through an academic year. So it would be as though students did not receive 3 or 4 months of schooling. That is if they have average quality instruction. In the second group, students received the lowest quality of instruction, and their potential learning loss can be predicted to be 7 to 11 months of learning. The third group did not receive any instruction, resulting in 12 to 14 months of learning loss. Again, thinking about what happened starting in March and moving through the rest of 2020. This kind of learning loss, because students have not received instruction, has actually happened quite a bit in the United States in many school districts because they cannot require school attendance online. And as you might guess, the central reason for missing school is often a lack of access to steady internet. This is the second variable. In response, in the United States, many teachers and administrators were delivering paper packets for studying, along with free lunches on a daily basis to thousands of children across the US. Yes, we have been heroes and continue to be. However, even when students can access the internet, many are disengaged. This is the third variable. In a school district close to Washington, D.C., where I live, an 8th grade teacher who normally saw 120 students daily before the pandemic, now she sees 30. 6 of them might turn in their work, with only 3 of them doing it well. Obviously, many of our students are dropping out, at least temporarily. In fact, it is predicted that many more students will drop out of school due to the pandemic at a rate between 2 to 9%. This might also be related to emotional issues due to social isolation, parents losing their employment, and possibly facing the death of a family member. These emotional issues might also influence the levels of support at home for students. The fourth variable. Often students live in crowded conditions with noise, lack of privacy, and other ongoing distractions. They may also need to care for siblings or grandparents while their own parents try to work. The fifth and sixth variables are closely related in that students of color, Blacks and Hispanics, tend to also live in lower income conditions. They are less likely to have high quality instruction online and less access to the internet, quiet spaces to work at home, and a parent who can supervise their work. These variables operate together to widen the achievement gap even further. The McKinsey Group has predicted that the months of learning loss on average by race are as follows. For whites, it's 6 months loss over the course of an entire year and moving into the end of 2020. And even in the United States, our schooling goes until June. Our calendar goes from September to June. So if we think about the school year going all the way to June 2021, that's being counted in as well. So for whites, it's 6 months. For Hispanics, it's 9. Blacks, 10 months. And for low income students in general, it's 12 months of learning loss. You may be seeing the same effects in your own local districts. These effects will take a long time to recover. Lower achievement will mean students might earn less money as they leave school. Some predictions estimate the loss equaling a full year of pay over the course of their lifetime. So, how can we respond to soften this impact? Here are 4 ideas. Create more flexible staffing models and teaching methods for blended learning between classroom and online learning. Target and support the most vulnerable students. Redefine what we mean by learning time. So that might mean providing good summer school programs, special academies and camps, or even extend the school year, especially since we'll be staying home longer during the pandemic. And have counselors available to accompany students with social and emotional needs. The challenges are great, but as a teaching force, we are adaptable, resilient, and dedicated. The world needs us more now than ever. Thank you, Chris. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Barbara Noel. Okay, so now I'd like to proudly introduce our second speaker, Professor Vânia Soares Barbosa. Professor Soares Barbosa is a full-time professor of Federal University of Piauí, Brazil, where she teaches English language and history and applied linguistics in the foreign language department. She holds a PhD in applied linguistics, and recently she founded GEMTE, a study and research group composed by undergraduate students, especially who are starting their studies in the field of multimodality. The purpose is to promote interest in scientific research, discuss theories, and share ideas. Her particular research interests are in multimodality, multiliteracies, visual semiotics, visual literacy, reading, teaching material, and teacher education. Please welcome Professor Vania Suarez Barbosa.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Well, I'm still trying to recover from this touchable and sensitive presentation that Barbara has just presented. Thank you, Barbara, for that. But the data that you presented really needs to be considered carefully, right? So thank you very much for that. And I really mean that I'm still trying to recover from that. But as they say, the show must go on. So let's try. So what I've presented for today, what I bring to present for today, I hope that I can give you, all of you teachers that are watching us, that are attending this event, I hope we can give us some insights, good insights, and hope for this next future. But first of all, I would like to thank you, Raimundo, for organizing this event and inviting me again. Last year we were together, right? So thank you, Raimundo, for that. Thank you, the American Consulate too, for providing the opportunities and everything we need to do that. So we would say that we are good partners here in Piauí, especially with the consulate in Recife with Stuart. So thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you again. Well, but we have few times, so let's show what I have presented. I would like to share my screen. I've prepared some slides to help us doing this for these 7 minutes or so. And while I was thinking about the title that I would give to this presentation, the song Sol desses Christmas came to my mind. And then I thought, okay, so this is E-class. And what have you done? Or what have we done, right? In this almost 5 months in Brazil, since we had stopped. And that's what I would like to go through this 5 months and maybe try to show you some kind of moving, yes, kind of shifts from what we have learned in the past and what we have doing now. So all of a sudden, we had to break some chasms that we have, because although teaching with technologies have been discussed so many years, we all know that we still are kind of conservatives in the way that we teach. But then COVID-19 knocking us on our doors, and all of a sudden we had to face these new challenges of technologies. And please, I would like to go to menti.com and use this code, because I asked you a question there, and I would like to have your opinion. You have your answer. And so that teacher that used to use to prepare their classes to be with their students, we have them to find ways to teach remotely, although we didn't know what teaching remotely really meant, right? So we tried to find new apps and new platforms and everything, and we had to face these challenges, and we were kind of desperate, I would say. At least some teachers in Brazil, they felt like, oh my God, and now what I have to do? Because the schools were asking them, requiring them to prepare the classes to be taught remotely, and they had never done that. And although they did their best to prepare their classes, parents on the other sides would say that they were not really teaching. So it was a difficult moment, I would say, at that time, at that very beginning. And which was a kind of contradiction, because just just like in the beginning of the year, in Brazil at least, some schools had forbidden the use of cell phones in schools. And I think Alexandra might remember this very well, because if I'm not wrong, she mentioned that in the school she worked, and I'm not sure if it was Alexandra. Anyway, and then so at first it was forbidden to use cell phones in schools, and then after that, after March, you cannot go to schools, you have to use the cell phone. So which was a kind of shock, of course. And we had to reinvent our places, our practices, our environment. And Annalisa, in one of the lives, she said, what is the chasm between my social life and my teaching practice? Because then our house had become our classrooms, our meeting rooms, in our study rooms, our churches, our every places to get together with our family and etc. Right? So we have all this kind of emotions going on with us, and we had to find a solution. And we did find, right? And we did find. There was some collaboration, I would say, between teachers, and they will start to sharing their experiences and their ideas, and they start finding out new apps and new tools to teach in a way that would also be meaningful for the students. And here I show you two examples of ebooks that have already been prepared for that, but maybe they were not so used, and I think now they are. That they show some apps and websites where you can teach using technologies, right? And let me see if you have already inserted no, later. Okay, later I'll show you at the end. And then teachers start to working together. I would say that after this first moment, teachers start working together. And I say that because I have a group of teachers from Teresina. They are about 5 or 6 teachers, and I have been observing their changings in these days when they start collaborating and they start doing something together, and observing their, I would say, their growth and their experiences was very positive for me, and I would say that for them too. But of course, this start happen when we start realizing, as this situation says, we start realizing that we were not responsible to find solutions, because we couldn't find solutions. But it was our responsibility as a teacher to try to fix. It was not our responsibility, but it was our responsibility to make choices for our students, to help them developing and going through this very difficult moment. Although we know that all of these problems will happen, because if in Brazil we have problems with internet and access to technology, imagining if in the United States, imagine in Brazil. I'm sorry if I have run out my time.
No, 2 more minutes.
2 minutes, okay.
Thank you.
So this group of teachers have shared with me also their experiences and their changes in the way they are teaching. And so here I would like to share with you some of their words and some of their experience that they wanted to tell us how they have changed their practices, their pedagogical practices, right? So these photos are from one of the teachers that wanted to tell me. She said, Vania, I will share with you my class today because I'm very happy. I get to interact with my students, my 4 years old students, because once she had been prepared in class, but she could not interact with them. And as teachers, we need this interaction with students, or else it's not really meaningful for us. But is it for students too? So this is a question that we have to consider. And the other one, she told me, when this teacher told me that, the other one told me that, the other one said, teacher, I will show you something that my student did, and I'm really in love. I'm really enjoying this moment now with my students from the second year. So what I wanted to show you is that from the moment that we were almost shocked by what we had to do and we didn't have to do, we could also see this transformation, I would say, in our teaching practice. Although it's not perfect, it's not the ideal one, because as I said, we as teachers, we were prepared to be in class to interact with our students. But we changed it somehow, and we incorporated some technologies that have been discussed in all of these years. And why? Because our students are from the 21st century, and they are used to use these technologies. So these are some environments that the children also had to create it. This is my niece. She's watching a class in English, and the teacher is singing, and she's kind of paying attention. But I really was in love. I don't have time to show the whole video, but I was really in love with this. This student here. This is Gloria's student. Her name is Laura. And she was asked to make a dictionary and then a video. And she did this lovely video.
Eu mostrei meu lindo dicionário que tem várias palavrinhas em inglês e português. Então, vamos lá? Então, vou editar aqui pra gente.
Vania, the time's running out now.
Okay.
If you could just finish up, thank you.
I will. Yeah. Just wait. So, but of course that we still have a lot of problems. This is not so pink, in a pink lens yet. We have this kind of differences in reality, and we have to find a way not to. We have to find a way to take all the difficulties that students have, and these differences and this gap between those who have good conditions and those who have not, so that we can face other challenges, right? That is this post-pandemic moment.
Okay, Vania, sorry to stop you. I think we're running out of time now.
Yes, but I'm just finished. Okay. So
okay, thank you.
This is the question.
Okay. Thank you. That was really interesting presentation there. So I'd like to introduce now, last but no means least, proud to welcome Professor Maria Eldelita Franco Holanda. Professor Franco Holanda is a full-time professor at Universidade Estadual de Piauí, USP, and teaches discourse analysis, linguistics, applied linguistics, reading, English culture, and history of language. Pedagogical practice for graduate students. She holds a PhD in applied linguistics from the Federal University of Pernambuco, co-author of the book Instrumental Reading Strategies. Her publications and research interests focus mainly on reading, applied linguistics, English language teaching, social semiotics, multimodality, and multimodal discourse. Please welcome Professor Maria Eldelita Franco Holanda. Over to
Good
you.
morning. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank you, the organizer, especially Raimundo, that he has invited me again to be here. I'd like to say thank you for Dr. Barbara and Vania for their wonderful presentations, right? And I'd like to say that everything that both Vanya and Barbara said is applies to Brazil also, right? Because there are many deaths and etc. Okay. I'm going to talk about the paradigm change in teaching English during the pandemic, gains and losses, right? Okay, so what happened? The pandemic changed lots of death and problems, economical, health, but it induced changes and the need to move the teaching and learning from classroom to cyberspace. And it has thrust us into the spotlight the value of digital technology, especially in persevering work and learning. Now, I asked my research asked 2 preschool children to draw about their experience in regular class and in digital classes. These are their perception, right? They have the idea of school with interaction with teachers and friends, and also alone at home, where the walls of schools were broken, right? There is no wall anymore. So the physical environment has changed. And so all of a sudden, all teachers had to become a designer or designing learner. So the pedagogy needs to be combined with the expertise in the design of learning environment. In 1996, the first group of linguistics, the New London group, they start discussing about designing learning, right? The use of knowledge that we could create our own material using technology. So Lin Fei in 2020 discussed designing digital learning. He discussed how learning experience can be designed with semiotic technology, which we have just seen in Vanya's presentation, right? So all of a sudden teachers became as designers. So the view of teacher has changed, evolving from technician who implement education ideas and procedures of the curriculum to teachers as designers of learning environments and experts in the art and science of teaching. So there are some gains and losses. Now, the new innovative pedagogy, but also that is useful to expand the pedagogical repertoire of teachers, several teaching possibilities. Digital technology helps to break down the classroom. Video recording, it's good, but also it's workload triple consuming, right? Important social physical arrangements. Use of new website platforms, also interaction in regular classroom, but interaction through can be gain and loss because it depends on the way this interaction will see, right? So more help from parents, the use of Netiquette for students, simultaneous discussion, forum, groups, interactive classes, or blended learning, because some students, they don't have internet, they don't have the poor connection, they don't have, how do I say, devices. And research showed that 21% of students in Brazil, they have no connection with the internet. So they cannot receive these digital classes or remote learning. But in Piauí, there is the educational chain of the Secretary of Education, which teacher can go there and get some information, guidelines for preparing some classes. But there were no training, right? So we started using some tools of learning, Kahoot, Google Classroom, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and the other one, Whiteboard when the school has money, PowerPoint, Canvas, videos, etc. Ok. Como é que eu faço para me ver? Eu quero voltar. Falar. Okay. And this is our changes in paradigm, because from now on, nothing is going to be the same. Everything is going to be different. And I agree with the problems all over the world are the same, because there is lack of knowledge. There are some people who are more prepared, or digital learners, or they are capable of using this technology. But there are also those students who are knowledgeable and they can use technology as well. And if you can compare my presentation with Vanya's presentation, there is a change, because even teachers, they use more technology and make their class, they are a designer, right? But doesn't mean that my classes are not as good as the ones. We are also learning how to prepare, how to deal with this situation, even though we are working with difficulties, strong difficulties, especially in learning and in teaching. But this is an experience that we'll see the good results in the future. Probably we'll have both ways of teaching. The use of the implementation of technology is something that we cannot go back, right? We are just move forward. And do I have any time, Chris?
30 seconds if you want to round up, that'd be great.
Yes, I'd like to thank you, all the panelists. It was a very, very important way of showing not only our problem, but that we can recover, we can move forward. Barbara told that how long students will have to recover, but also teachers will take time in recovery. Probably this will have a new way of changing the teaching at the universities, because universities must now guide teachers, or teachers to be, how to deal with not only teaching, but with teaching and technology for children, for teenagers and adults. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Maria Aldelita. So now I'd like to open the virtual floor up to the audience. I'll now read some of your interesting questions and points. Unfortunately, we don't have a great deal of time, so I'm sorry if your questions or points were not read out. The first thing I'd like to just say is that I think we're all going through this together, no matter how long you've been teaching for, whether it's 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 years, 50 years, we're all feeling the same. So an interesting point that I think would probably make a lot of people feel more reassured is could you mention each one of you maybe just one thing that you've learned in this pandemic, either about yourself or about your teaching practices? Oh, I think you're muted, Barbara.
Yeah, there we go. Well, that's one of the things I've learned, is how to mute and unmute. Well, for me, although I've taught online and in blended environments for a long time, when this pandemic happened, I got very nervous. I quickly had to learn a lot of the new technology before I could start teaching at the university level in March. And at one point I felt like deer in the headlights. So as they say in English, which means I felt paralyzed and didn't know where to start. So even for veterans, old folks like me, who have always felt pretty comfortable with technology, it was pretty scary. I could show you, if you'd like, real quickly, one thing I learned, and that would be to teach through blended learning, which is where I think that we're going. So maybe in the closing time, I can show you a slide about what blended learning might look like as a silver lining as we start to transform education in the future.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. That's really interesting. And Maria Aldelita, would you like to share something that you've learned about yourself or your teaching? I think you're
During
muted.
this pandemic time, I have been struggling with technology. I have been learning a lot, but now I am more prepared to deal with my students' needs and necessities, and how to transform myself and my classes into a very designed learning teaching material, right? Because I have to think about what are their needs are, to ensure that learning social, highly motivating, and also concept of be demanding for each learning, but without excessive overload, because there is a tendency of giving many tests and exercise. Okay, we cannot do that. We have to let them feel that they are able to move on. They are going to become researchers, they learn more.
And I think it's easy to assume that the pupils know everything about information technology, but of course they're learning as well, because it's a new way of learning, not just teaching, isn't it?
And there are a lot of websites and tools for them to understand and use. It's not easy.
That's really interesting point. And Dr. Vanya, would you like to share something that you've learned during the pandemic?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that I have learned a lot with this group of teachers. They are from public and private schools. So I would like to thank you, all of them, because they have showed me how we can do something. And why I say that is because they, as I said, I could observe their transformation, I would say. And as the words of this event says, we have to reimagining, related and reimagining. So we have to relate it, what we have learned in the past, which is not so long, with all that we have now in the present, so that we can face the future that we don't know how it's going to be. And so those teachers, they have taught me how to do that. And I have to say that just next week I will have to do the same, because at Federal University of Piauí, we are going to start teaching remotely. And for me, it is also a challenge. Because at the same time that I have to reinvent my pedagogical practices, reimagining everything that I used to do, I also have to think of my students, because they are going through the same process, right? So yeah, I would say that what I have learned is that we can learn when we are together, sharing our experiences, our ideas, and overcoming the problems. Because if we are alone, we cannot do that. And
sorry, carry on.
Okay.
That's a really interesting point as well, that, you know, everybody that feels kind of anxious or questions their ability, it's not just you that's doing it, it's probably all of your colleagues. And also, you know, as the viewers can see, that teachers of your experience are still finding some anxiety about this. So it's not easy for everybody else. You know, everyone's experiencing the same. So a few comments. Antonia Maria Vaz has a comment. Her main challenge is the social conditions her students live. They have no internet or cell phone. So obviously in Brazil and in America, there's still points that probably you professors have to deal with. Is there any way, I'll turn that comment into a question. Is there any way, how do you get around that for the students? I think one of you, I think Eldelita said that, you know, a lot of people still not accessing the work because of this. So what can we do?
Can I say something?
Sure, please.
I interviewed some state teacher that she said that sometimes she has to use only the cell phone with PowerPoint through WhatsApp because it's the only way that they can get. But the schools are also have what we call blended learning or hybrid teaching, that they can give students written exercise. But it's not enough, right? For example, at the WESP, we are discussing how the government will help students who are in the interior, who don't have internet connection. How can they receiving, or they will receive those classes? It's quite important. It's difficult, quite impossible. And that's the reality we have to face. It's not only the teachers who have to worry about. And some teachers also, they say that they don't have good machines, right? Even my computer is not good enough for the many apps we have to download, right? Imagine. So the students don't have cell phone, they don't have anyone to give them help. So that's the reality we have to face. But we have to find a way out, right? Giving them written exercise or written orientation. But if they start at home without talking to the teacher, it will be a problem. So as Barbara said, they will take longer to recover what they have lost. And in Brazil, there is a name, and there is a gap, a social gap between private school and public school. Those students who are going to take a name, only the private students are going to be successful because the other one cannot receive any or just few orientations. That's my worry in this pandemic.
Okay. And obviously, again, if there was time to plan for this, there would have been ways to work around that. But because obviously it happened overnight,
yes,
you're having to do it as you work, aren't you? Find these things. So, Barbara, could you just give us a few bits of information about how we get around the technological problems?
Sure. Well, we can think about the way rural education was done way back when students couldn't even make it to the schoolhouse. I mean, this is going way back. And at that point, I mean, I remember even in Colombia, they talked about the biblioburro, the donkey that would go with the books and the teaching materials and go from town to town and drop off the educational materials. Well, luckily we don't have to deal with the donkey and the cart anymore, but you know, we can certainly, where there is no cell phone coverage and there is no internet, we're just going to go back to that, where we're dropping off educational material to the various small towns. And then as things to hopefully start to open up, I know in the US, there are some schools that are opening up on what they call intermittent learning, where they will have half of this class go for 2 or 3 days out of the week, while the other half of the class stays home and works on either the internet or on a packet, and the other half goes in for personalized learning. So if I may, I'd like to show one idea of how that might work. Let me go ahead and present that a little bit larger for you. We could have, for example, a blended learning model where we could have certain students going in, a smaller amount of students going into the school and doing face-to-face learning. But previously they will have learned hopefully online or with a packet of materials. And that packet of materials will help them practice language, construct understanding, grow their language. And as Professor Delita mentioned, teachers can design meaningful, authentic experiences. In the keynote, I will share a menu. It's sort of like a bingo board, a menu that students can work through by themselves without being on the internet, of activities that can be done. And then if they can go to the school, even if it's 2 days a week and it's a smaller group, that way they can have some sort of face-to-face learning where the teacher can assess and give feedback and have students self-assess their thinking and explain their thinking. And they can also confer with the students, give them more support as is needed, and then also it would help develop relationships much more. So this is an idea that we could use as we start to open up and have small groups going back into school. Other than that, I would suggest that we go back to just delivering materials, you know, town by town, and then picking up the materials, looking at them, and then meeting with the students as possible.
Okay,
So that's pretty much where I am right now.
I think that's fascinating in the way that it's complete ends of the spectrum, isn't it? Delivering work to then the new technological ways of working. But sometimes the old ways, you know, do help. Sometimes they're the best. Okay, so I think we've got time for one more question for you all. This is from Lenia Carvalho. How can we get more interesting things to join the students to the class in the pandemic time? So I suppose you're going to, throughout the day, we're going to cover a lot of different ways of teaching, but maybe just for each of you, maybe could you tell us one thing that you actually like to use with the students that you think they enjoy the most? So Barbara, would you like to?
Sure. I'll be sharing two of my favorite apps later on during my workshop, and those are Flipgrid and Padlet. If there is one thing, two things that I would suggest that teachers do as they start heading into online teaching, those would be the two. Padlet allows students to type electronically and share their thoughts together and build knowledge together. And Flipgrid allows, it's like a telephone call, a video call, but it's done at different times. And so a conversation can be done that way.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And Vanya, what do you find useful in this pandemic to use with students?
Okay, so first of all, I will show the results of my question. In here we can see a lot of how the participants in these events have collaborated with us, sharing the different apps that they have been using during this pandemic. I myself have to say, so we had 32 answers, and we can all have this, and I can also share this with Raimundo so that he can share with all the group. So I myself have been using Microsoft Teams, and that is the platform that I intend to use with my classes, to teach my classes with the group of students at Federal University of Piauí. But I have tried some like Zoom, like all this Google, the Kahoot and the Word, I forgot the name now, the Mentimeter, this one, and all of these apps that I think they are very interesting and they can be used so that we can get the students involved more in their learning process. But I also would like to say that I do believe that the government has to do something to decrease or to eliminate the so many differences in social conditions and access to technologies. If the government doesn't do anything, and it doesn't mean only the Brazilian government, but all of the world. So if they don't do anything so that everybody can have access to technology and to internet, we will go in certainly, as just Barbara has just showed, so the laws will be even bigger than we have so far.
Okay, thank you. And that's really insightful in the way that a pandemic brings up bigger questions, doesn't it, about the organization of certain aspects of the country. It's not just about teaching. There's lots of, like you said, you know, it's government needs to be included as well. So Maria Aldelita, would you like to share something with us as well?
I'd like to say something like Vanya, because in September we are going back with remote learning, but teachers are going to use G Suite, right? But the students, I don't know how we are going to do, because they do not have internet connection, they do not have devices, and I don't know if the government will provide, because the Secretary of Education has educational channel, but they haven't given teachers any training. right? At WESP, we had a course on technology. All the G Suite apps we had been trained. So that is a kind of preparation for us. But the problem is not the teacher. The problem are the students. And my concern is, how can we send classes or Google Form, Classroom, but if the students are not going to have the app possible to receive those information, right? Even for us, I've heard last class that the teacher, her computer is damaged because she had to download many apps, and it was not enough. And her cell phone also is not working anymore. Imagine the students who are in the homes in rural areas without any connection. What are going to do? Say, Barbara said that we have to send them printed material, yes, but they need to have this interaction, or through forum, or through Meet, or Zoom, or any kind of connection, because I have to receive a feedback from the student, and I don't know what to do.
Okay, thank you. Again, there's a lot more to think about, isn't there? So thank you, ladies, for that. That was really interesting. I'm sure all the audience got a lot from that and learned things. So I'm sure the audience would like to join me in thanking you sincerely for the interesting topic and discussion. I think the most poignant thing that I take away from this is that we all are in this together, no matter how long we've talked for, like I said before. It hit us overnight. It was a very intense force that came about. None of us could ever predict how our lives were going to change and teaching and learning. But what we have to do now, I suppose, is think positively, like Jennifer said at the end about optimism, trying to find solutions rather than problems. But we're in this together, I think. And just, I think for people to remember that it's a world pandemic, which means that the world is feeling like you are too. Yeah. So you're not alone. And I think another thing to take away from this is be kind to yourselves. If you are struggling, sometimes teachers and people in those caring professions are the worst self-critics, aren't we? So I think look after yourself, because you can't look after people if you're not looking after yourself. So thank you for that. It's really interesting. We'll return after a short break of 10 minutes. So I thank you everyone for your participation. Thank you.
Ok, pessoal. Então, thank you so much. And we have 5 minutes break. Don't forget to go follow the link to the attendance, and we'll be right back. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Professor Eldelita, and thank you, Vania. And you'll be back in 5 minutes for our keynote session.
Thank you, Raimundo, and thank you all of you that are watching us at this moment. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Eldelita. Thank you, everybody.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Teacher Training Day. Now we have the keynote, Creating a New Normal in Learning, Relate, Reaffirm, Reimagine with Dr. Noel. During the presentation, we'll have moments to interact through the chat box on YouTube, so feel comfortable to participate and share your thoughts. Okay, Dr. Noel, we are excited to hear more from you.
Thank you, Professor Alexandra and Professor Raimundo for organizing this wonderful day. And I'm going to go ahead and start sharing some slides. Now that we know that we need to learn a lot of technology, I'm hoping that you will find this presentation useful. So I'm going to go ahead and start presenting on my slides. So you have seen this picture before, because this is what was in the advertisements for today. And we picked it because in some ways it resonated with our life these last few months during the crisis. So we know that we will be teaching online for the foreseeable future. And given this reality, do you ever feel like this little man who is desperately trying to hold it all together? How does this picture relate to your job over these past few months? Notice that the old tools are in the back. So which ones have you eliminated? And what are the new tools that you are trying? And do you feel as though you have to try to learn so many at the same time that you worry that at some point everything will come tumbling down? So, how are you feeling right now about online teaching? Do you feel like you are in control? Or are you feeling unprepared? Or are you just trying to keep things together day by day? Today, we are going to be talking about 4 topics. What have we learned, those of us that are in this YouTube room? Yes?
The slides.
They're not showing?
No.
Oh, I'm so sorry. There we go. I thought I had shared them. There we go. I will go back a little bit and I will ask you, how are you feeling? Can you see them now? Can you see the slides now? Okay.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about online teaching? Are you in control? Are you feeling unprepared? Or are you just trying to keep things together? Today, what we will talk about is, what have we learned, all of us that are in this YouTube presentation, what have we learned about online learning? And then topic 2 will be, how do we relate to our learners and what works best for all learners online? Topic 3 will be, how do we reaffirm the best practices that we know are good for English learners, and how do we transfer that to the digital environment? And then topic 4 is, now that we know what works well for English learners and for all learners in general, how can we reimagine learning in the digital environment? So I picked up these samples on the internet that might get us started in thinking about what we have learned about online learning.
Bom dia, brasileiros! It's Friday, sexta-feira. Vamos começar vídeo aprender inglês. Can you help me? Pode ajudar? Can you help me? Eu perdi. I am lost. I am lost.
I would imagine that's how a lot of us have been feeling during this crisis. And this is a sample of what some students, even though they're older students, how they might be feeling in online learning.
Nuestro. Our. Mineral. Or. Or. Remo. Or. Nuestro mineral o nuestro remo. Or.
I think you might relate. So in the chat window, what is one thing you have learned about teaching through online learning? You can even write in Portuguese or in your home language if you wish. And our lovely virtual assistant, Alexandra, will read out 2 or 3 of your answers.
Okay, I can see people typing. Just let's wait a moment. Okay, Lenny says, I feel not comfortable to teach because sometimes I don't receive a good feedback. I believe it's from students. So Teach English always says, never give up. That's a good message for us.
We are heroes.
Yes. Luciana Lozada says, I feel fine and comfortable with online teaching. Thank you all for sharing your comments.
Thank you. And you can keep those comments coming. They will be recorded. So we're going to talk about different ways to relate to our students online. What works best for all learners online? As you can see, here is a digital classroom. I tried to make it as cozy and comfortable as possible. And also put in a lot of signs saying you are important, what we're learning is important, welcome. We need to really go above and beyond in terms of showing our students how important it is that we establish a sense of belonging. And this is one way to do it. We need to show ourselves as human beings, and personalize the learning in this digital environment, especially when our students are feeling so unstable with what's going on around the world and locally. According to Michael Nakbar, who is the head of the global online community, the most important recommendation, and I see this also in the courses that I teach online, is that we establish a connection, a personal connection with our students. We also want to build in fun and interaction. And some of you have already mentioned Kahoot. I think Professor Vanya did as well. That is a really fun way to turn quizzes into fun games for students. Another way is to use something called a Flipgrid. And that is a way for students to record their answers to questions and to respond to each other. And all of the resources that I'm going to be sharing with you today can be used on a cell phone as well. So even if it is the Wi-Fi or the internet is limited, there is at least that way to be able to work with each other through cell phones. And these are 2 good ways to do that. Another thing that we need to also work on is to establish a sense of trust and safety. And one of the ways to do that is to start with class agreements. So talk about, well, what will work best for us online? Well, maybe starting on time, turning off our microphones unless we have something to say, raise our hand button to speak. Those are the agreements that help establish a sense of safety and predictability. Another thing that we can do is to give out a lesson plan for the week ahead of time. And then to let people know when the virtual classes will be and that they were always on the same day and at the same time. and give them a way to click in and get straight into the class so that all they have to do is touch a button. We also want to be able to let them know when we might be available to speak with them one-on-one or in small groups, and that they can email you to set a time, like an appointment, so that they can talk with you and to establish some good two-way communication. The lesson plan could always be structured so that they know what to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and have the same types of routines. That is another way to structure this for your students. Also, make sure that you are using a central platform. I showed Blackboard on there, but you can use Google Classroom that is free. You can use other ones like Canva or Schoology, so that is where the students will always know that is their classroom. Even if it's not physical, it's their virtual classroom, and they will know where to turn in their classwork, where to see presentations, where to communicate with each other, where to see their grades. All of that in one place is very important for them. If internet is unstable, you can also send home, either on paper if you wish, something called a bingo board or a menu of activities. And I will click on this right now to show you in larger detail what this might be, just to give you ideas that there are ways that you can make learning meaningful. It's not wanting to do it now. Of course, let me go ahead and try it again. Okay, here it's coming up. So you could give them a choice of 4 or 5 things they could do every day and throughout the week. So you can always give them something to read, something to write, something to research, something to do to help others, and something to create. And so this is something that you could give out even though there is limited internet. And then they could take pictures of it, send it to you through WhatsApp, or if somebody goes around to the town and picks up classwork, this is something that they can turn in. I'm having trouble getting right back in. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing for a moment, and I'm going to try to get back in. Okay, I'm going to share the screen again and see if this works. Here we go. And I'll see if I can go ahead and put it in present mode. Are you able to see the slide this time? I hope so. Please let me know.
We can see. Can see it.
Great. Okay. Another way to relate to your students, of course, is to go to where they are on social media. So if they're on YouTube, if they're on WhatsApp, if they're on TikTok, you can create instructional videos and put them on there. So here's an example. Here's an example of a 6-word sentence strategy where you can show them how to grow sentences from 6 words to a larger number of words in a sentence.
My restaurant serves delicious, healthy meals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My restaurant opens early and serves delicious meals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So that is one way that it can be done. And then even underneath, even if it's on YouTube, it doesn't have to be TikTok. Even if it's on YouTube, what you can do is underneath, you can, on the comments, they can actually practice and improve their competence, their sense of competence. You can see here that the student is increasing the length of her sentence. And then you can give feedback like, watch out for run-on sentences and punctuation. You can also give video feedback right there inside the same comment box, which would make yourself so much more relatable to the students because that is what they're used to in their social media. Another way to relate to your students is to stay in touch with their experience. You can use Google Forms to ask them questions like, how does the course design suit your needs as a learner? The length of the meetings, the frequency of the meetings, those kinds of things. And I give this to my students quite frequently in my courses, and it's really good to know so that I can always align my practice to their expectations and vice versa. So once I get their responses, Google Forms has a way of compiling it all into useful information for you so that you know what to improve for next time and what to keep that's good. So these are many ways that you can build relationships with your students. So that's a lot, and we're already feeling overwhelmed, like this little guy that's trying to make sure that his Jenga building isn't flipping over. So just pick one. Pick one. Which one would you like to work on? And you can actually even write that into the chat room if you would like. So now we're going to consider what works best for English learners online. Now, something that we know before COVID, before the pandemic, is that we do a lot of things that are good for English learners. And we just need to remember what those are and then just move them to the digital environment. So one of those things is writing really good language objectives or language learning targets. So it's always good to put that in front of your students. Like this one, I can use verbs and adjectives to describe a place, or I can discuss features of restaurant services, which would be the topic that they would be talking about, those kinds of things. But there are many others. And so I've sort of listed them here. You will have a copy of this presentation. And on this slide, what you're going to be able to do is to click on each of the visuals, and it will take you to more information for how to use them. Okay, so I won't go too much into the detail on this. But if we can go ahead and summarize what works best for English learners in online learning, the first one is to make sure that you're tapping into background knowledge and being culturally responsive to your students. So do you invite your students to share what they know and tell their stories? Do you open up spaces for multiple perspectives and for celebrating a variety of cultures, especially well, all over the world, really? I will highlight this one practice that I think is absolutely lovely. It is I'm going to go ahead and actually click on it so that you can see it. And this is on Twitter, a major area where I'm learning as well. When I was that paralyzed teacher thinking, how in the world am I going to teach digitally? I went to Twitter, and there is so much on there. And so in this one, this art teacher asked students to take a picture of themselves, placing all of the objects that are important to them during online learning. And what a beautiful way of developing a sense of community in the classroom. And immediately, these are good ways for students to talk about something that is familiar in their background knowledge and to be the cultural consultants for you so that you can see how they present themselves in their culture. The other piece is accessing learning through support. As English language teachers, we are superhuman superheroes in learning how to support our students. So a lot of times we give vocabulary ahead of time, something called sentence frames, and we give that to our students to practice online before an activity so that when they are talking, they can use those words. You can also do a lot with visuals. That is one wonderful silver lining for online learning. We can use visuals from Unsplash or Pixabay that are royalty free. There are lots of others there. You can also help your students interact a lot through apps like Pear Deck. I absolutely love Pear Deck, and I highly encourage you to go there. It's a wonderful way to have your students interact through slides. You can also give them linguistic support. So for example, making sure that if students are watching a YouTube video, they can turn on the closed captions so they can actually see the words as they're being spoken. What a great way to have a voice print match. If you want them to learn special vocabulary or any vocabulary really, you can go to WordWall, which is a wonderful way to build interactive word walls for vocabulary. I believe Professor Vanya also mentioned Quizlet. There's also quizzes. You're going to see that there is a plethora of tools out there that I will also share with you. But these are ways that you can see how they can be used as part of the 4 keys for English learners. Another way is to make sure that you're integrating all 4 domains in your teaching. So making sure, and I'm going to go ahead and click on this right now, that you're incorporating listening, reading, and speaking and writing in the same lesson, the same weekly lesson. So you can ask your students to be listening detectives and have a checklist of words or language structures that they're listening for. And then you can give them a reading or have them view something and then take notes and then create definitions of terms and drawings. They can even write the word in their home language, and oftentimes those will have cognates that will transfer meaning immediately. You then could have them turn to speaking with each other. It could be through a breakout room. It could be through WhatsApp. It could be through Flipgrid. And they could build on an idea by talking about each of the vocabulary words. Or even talking about a passage or a video as a way to practice their speaking. And then for writing, you can have them choose, let's say, like the 2 terms, the 2 words that they were learning, have them write a compare and contrast explanation about how they're related. So in that way, you're having all 4 domains being integrated in each of the lessons. And then you also want to make sure that you put higher level thinking tasks into your lessons. And I know that as good English teachers, you do that already, and you can certainly do that online. So for example, you can use Padlet, and I'll show you an example here, where you give students examples of grammatically correct sentences, and then you give them examples of ungrammatical sentences making the same grammatical error, and they can read them, and then you can encourage them then to add in their own examples, and then that will give you a way to talk about the grammar rule. But they're actually actively learning and they're exploring and discovering versus just being told the rule. So, and also you might want to make sure that they are engaging in cross-linguistic analysis. So here is one from Claribel Gonzalez, who looks at looking at words and inside the words. So it's the phonemic and the morphological endings and seeing how they work together, and making a comparison between, let's say, Portuguese or Spanish and English will help accelerate learning quite a bit. So here are just a few ways that we can work with this. And now, oops, I'm having problems. Okay, can you see I think you can see my next slide, right? Alexandra, can everyone see this next slide? It went black for a little while and now it's come back.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, great. So now let's think about how we can design, as Professor Maria Delita mentioned, that we're now designers of learning. How can we design activities for students online? And maybe one of the best things is to think back and reaffirm some of the good things that we were doing before the pandemic. And so a lot of them, for example, might be things that you did in class where everybody was together, is that you would have them listen to a presentation, practice writing sentences, listen to instructions for a task, work in small groups to complete a task, or complete a worksheet. Well, now, one of the silver linings about learning online in this new millennium is that we can actually make some of those happen offline, and not everybody has to be together. So it can look something like this. They can listen to the presentation, practice writing sentences, listen to instructions on their own time, asynchronously. And you can use the most important time when you're all together for small groups to complete a task. As Professor Maria Delita mentioned, is you want to not overload your students with work, because we know that it takes longer to get through content online than it did when we were face to face. So you want to reserve the synchronous time when everybody's together for robust activities where people are really interacting, and leave the rest of it on offline. And again, also remember to reduce the amount of things that they have to do, because or else you're just going to burn out your students. So as a reminder, synchronous learning is real time. And so you can use video conferences, live chat, breakout groups, things like that. And asynchronous learning is independent interaction with online learning materials, and everyone learns at a different time. So now it's your time to talk. I've been talking for a while. What activities can you have during synchronous learning? And please go ahead and respond in the chat window. And our wonderful, lovely virtual assistant, Professor Alexandra, will read out a few of those comments.
Okay, Barbara. The comments are coming.
I'm looking at them as well.
Okay, we have here role play. We can use Kahoot, quizzes, Zoom, games, dialogues.
Dialogues are wonderful. I saw something just this morning on Twitter about electronic dice that are thrown and allow students to have dialogue based on what's written on each of the faces of the cube. So definitely you can do that, even if you have to have digital dice.
Would you like to hear more comments?
I do see that conversation practice is big, and definitely, and that's something that sometimes we forget about in our face-to-face classrooms, is to give people a chance to have conversations. And so synchronous learning is wonderful. I think we're okay right now, Alexandra. We'll move on to the next. So synchronous environments, there are some advantages in that, as many of you have mentioned, the dialogues, the social conversational aspect, oral language develops, so does social language, and opportunities to negotiate meaning. So you can ask the teacher, excuse me, I didn't quite understand what you were saying. Could you repeat that, please? Or I didn't quite understand that word. Could you give me another word, or could you give me a visual to clarify my understanding? You can have student to student natural communication, and it's also an amazing place for teachers to model the language and to provide practice and instant feedback. Some of the disadvantages are that students need more time to process and may miss some information. But there you can record your synchronous sessions on Zoom if you wish. Students may be afraid to talk in front of the entire class, and that was also an issue pre-COVID. And you could use some breakout rooms and smaller groups so that you could work on that. And also teachers may be nervous to talk spontaneously while also managing all those tech tools. And so luckily there are many ways where you don't have to talk as a teacher. You can use a read aloud book that is read aloud online. YouTube has a lot of them, and I will give you links to those. You can also have a plugin like with Google. Google has read and write, where you can, as a learner, you can have Google read everything that is on the slide for you. Buncee is another one that has an immersive reader. A lot of tools from Microsoft have these, what they call immersive readers. Well, it will be read aloud to you. So now, what activities can you have during asynchronous learning? Think about that for a moment, and I'd love to see your ideas. I'm sure you've thought about many more ideas than I've even thought about, and I'd love to learn from you, and we could all learn from each other in what you write in chat. So let's take a couple of minutes and look at what your comments are. And again, I'll ask Professor Alexandra to read out 2 or 3 of the comments.
Okay. The comments are coming. Just a minute.
Great.
Okay. Lenny says we can mix Google Meet with other tools.
Yes, I learned a new tool, another word the other day, and it's called app smashing, where you can use different apps working together. But I would suggest that you do that once you feel comfortable with one app and then the other app and then the other app, because then it might be easy for you to feel like this poor guy where all the bricks are falling on him. But once you feel comfortable with certain apps, you can certainly use them together, like in Google Classroom.
Yeah, we have also fill in the blanks, Flipgrid, readings, matching games, videos, presentation, Hangout.
Yes, Google Hangout's wonderful. Great, Kahoot is wonderful. I'm so glad many of you are on that. Thank you, Professor Alexandra. Some of the pros and cons for English learners in asynchronous environments are listed here. The advantages are that if students are learning on their own time, they have more time to translate words and phrases and really make sure they understand what those mean and to practice the language on their own. They can repeat videos, they can use the closed captioning, they can repeat audio files. Asynchronous environments also give more time for teachers to monitor and clarify for individual students. So you might have a WhatsApp group with your students, and you might see that one of the students is probably needing a little more support. Then you can separately WhatsApp that student and talk with that student, see how you might support him or her. The only disadvantage that I can think of is that asynchronous environments provide less cues for understanding the language. Google Translate is not perfect by any means, but it is a tool that you can use, especially for beginning learners, where you can have them use that for a little bit of translation so that they can make sure that they understand the directions and the gist of the lesson. So there are ways that you can build in those supports during asynchronous learning. More than anything, we've talked about tools, and I'm just about to show you a lot more tools, okay? Again, to learn them one by one, so that you don't tip over or have all your bricks tip over on you. But often we get so attracted by the digital tools that we think those are the learning outcomes, like creating podcasts or making videos. But actually, those are just vehicles for learning. They're tools for learning. the learning outcomes that we want our students to have are just the same as the ones that we had for them before the pandemic. So we want to reaffirm those learning outcomes. So we still want our students to have conversations, develop vocabulary, write for authentic purposes, read and listen to understand, analyze language, access learning, and make themselves understood. Those are universal, whether you're in a digital environment or not. And so what's changed is the kinds of tools that we use. And those tools are digital. All right. That's an important understanding before we look at this toolkit. So those of you who are comfortable using QR codes, you can scan the QR code directly. You should be able to scan it directly onto your phone. If not, Professor Alexandra is going to be putting the link on the chat window for you. And I've assembled a toolkit for you so that you can use, feel free to use a lot of these tools. Now, you've mentioned some tools that I haven't seen before, and this is an opportunity for us to continue learning from each other. So if you would like to add more tools to this toolkit, by all means, go ahead and do so. And I will show you how that can be done. So you can go to the Padlet and you'll see that there are different categories of tools, and I even put no tech tools. And on the bottom, let's see if I can get to the bottom here, you should be able to find a way. And I didn't add millions of tools because I just added the ones that I thought were best. I believe there is a way, and if not, I will figure out a way that you can go ahead and add more tools to this toolkit. So I hope that you find this toolkit useful for your teaching. I would imagine that's one of the reasons why you joined us today. So now I'm back to the presentation. Lishandra, can everyone see my presentation slide again?
I still see the tools you were showing us.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to go back to my presentation. Oops. There we go. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can see.
Wonderful. Okay. So, oh, and notice that I have, you could think of this as maybe a toolkit. This bookcase is now empty, and it's empty figuratively so that you can add one by one the digital tools to your own personal toolkit or bookcase as you feel comfortable. Don't download them all at once. You'll drive yourself crazy. Just you learn to use them one by one, and as you feel comfortable, add them to your toolkit. So to close my part of the presentation, I do want to share with you that beyond all the learning outcomes and the content and the tools, what stands best is to reaffirm what we know about good teaching, that relationships come before rigor, that grace comes before grades, patience before programs, and love before lessons, especially during this time of the pandemic. So with this, I will ask for one last question, and you can add this to the chat. How do you feel about online teaching now? Do you still feel like, wow, you were just hit with a ton of bricks, as in picture one? Or are you still in panic mode, like in picture two? Are you feeling zen and calm, like you know what you're doing and you're in control, like this cat? Or are you like ready to go, inspired and ready to start designing, like number four? Or are you still feeling pretty depressed and just want to eat chocolates? Go ahead and put your numbers in the chats.
Okay, so let's see what our participants have to say now. Inspired, we have inspired here.
Great.
You can type the number if you want. Number 5, 4, 4, 5.
Hello.
Yeah.
3, good. Remember that we're moving from teaching in a crisis to learning how to teach online. So it will take some time, but the lovely part about all of this is that this has forced all of us, it's become a catalyst to inject new energy into digital teaching and learning. And with that will come so much creativity that we will be able to meet our 21st century learners where they are online. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to ask any questions, and you can write those in the chat window. And I think we have just a few more minutes so that we can do that. Am I correct? I believe we have about 15 minutes. Is that correct, Alexandra?
Yes, we have 50 minutes for questions and answers.
Wonderful.
So let's wait for the questions. Actually, we already have one. It will
great.
Okay. The question is actually the question was addressed to everyone on chat, but I think I can give you the question. It is, do anyone have an idea about some resources to use to teach literature for beginners while promoting soft skills like critical thinking? I'll be very grateful for. So if somebody on the chat can also help, this is great.
Wonderful. And something that you'll notice in the digital toolkit that I made available, I'll move back to that one, is I'm actually going to go ahead and go into Padlet again. And there is a category for reading. And it's epic books. And then all of these have free components. You can go to Newsela, and there are texts for students of all ages. And a lot of these texts in Newsela come with lesson ideas for building critical thinking. There are Breaking News English, but that's for maybe older students. You also have the Global Storybook Portal for English learners, and that's aimed more at younger students. Reading A to Z is wonderful, and it has a free trial. And there are animated storybooks that students can see the books all being animated. And then Unite for Literacy provides free digital books as well. And YouTube has a lot, let me see if I have them here. YouTube has a lot of resources where books are being read aloud. And a lot of them have podcasts as well. There are famous people that read stories. I believe it's this one right here that's called Storyline Online. And those would be more resources that you can use. Alexandra, would you mind putting the link for Padlet again on the chat?
Yeah, sure. Just a minute.
Great.
So I think other questions are coming while we do this.
Okay. And suggestions and ideas for working with preschoolers. What I have seen is actually using WhatsApp and video, where the teacher would create a video of a lesson, a mini lesson, and then ask the students to write something and take a picture of it and upload it to WhatsApp. That's very helpful. But I'm sure other people have very good ideas for that as well. There is also a bingo board for young learners. Let me see if I can show it here. Yeah, home bingo choice board, ideas for primary and secondary students, that you can go there, and there are more choice boards for young learners. And I'm going to add another resource that I just found last night, and I'll be adding it to this digital toolkit for you later on today.
Great. So we have other questions here, Barbara.
Yes.
Can I? Okay.
Please.
So Newsel asks, how do you know if the students are making progress?
The best thing that can be done is to define your learning objectives very, very well. So you can write, let's say, I can find the main idea in a reading or in a conversation. And so a lot of it is in writing your learning objectives very, very clearly and short. And so what you're doing is you're sharing what we call the success criteria. So in order to be successful with this task, you need to, for example, show that you can identify the main idea. And so you can use that success criteria sort of as a checklist. And as you keep using that success criteria along the way, you'll be able to see who's making it and who isn't. Is that helpful?
Yeah, sure. That's great. So Rosa asks, how to encourage students to learn by themselves?
Well, that's where you would have the asynchronous environment where you would give them the readings and the listening practice and the videos that they can be watching and language to practice. And then you could tell them things like, okay, learn this well, because on Tuesday, when we're all together, we're going to play a Kahoot game. And you're going to need to use that language in your Kahoot game. So you're inviting them to learn so they know that they can do something fun after that. So those are ways that you can show them that learning on their own is the most important. There is also a way that you can show them that there's a diagram called the gradual release of responsibility diagram. Let me see if I can quickly put it on here, where release of responsibility. And it's a diagram that shows the level of responsibility that a teacher has and the amount of responsibility a student has throughout time. And so they know that it's not all just the responsibility of the teacher, but that they need to also put in their part to make this happen.
Great. So we have some lovely comments among the questions. Actually, attendees are thanking you, Barbara, for your great presentation. And we have a very talented question here.
Yeah.
I will read it. Okay, so how to deal with home life, kids, housework, and synchronous and other lesson suggestions. Teachers and students, that's hard.
Well, that's what I call crisis teaching in a crisis, and it's also learning in a crisis, isn't it? The crisis isn't just about the pandemic, but it's about what needs to happen at home, and that is a tough one. There isn't a quick fix, is there? One thing could be to encourage students and parents to have a family meeting about what needs to happen in the house so that students can have a calm, quiet space to learn. And parents might need to have that conversation with their kids too, because they're trying to work. So it would be more of having regular family meetings, like maybe every Tuesday, every Friday, checking in, how did it work? Things like, okay, We know that the children need to be learning from 9 to 11 every morning. And during that time, one of the parents or somebody in the family, maybe an older sister or an aunt or someone, can be available for students while everyone else is trying to clean, cook, do the laundry, and everything else. But having those conversations and then having a time to check back is very important.
Yeah, that's great. So I think we still have time to one or two questions. So Marcia asks, do you have an activity that we can use to join, for example, another subject together with English classes?
Yes, actually, you can use the texts, the readings from other content areas. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. In the digital toolkit, you have something called for reading. If you go under the practice reading column, you can go to Newsela. Newsela has content from various areas like social studies that's free. And you can use those as a way to get the language around the content that's needed. And I do know that Reading A to Z, let me see if I can bring that up here, gives like a 3-month free trial. And that one has, let me see if I've got it down here. Yeah, I have it here. That one has wonderful resources at various reading levels and for English language learners as well. And they have books that can be read to the students and that can be in different content areas like science that you can look at and you can introduce that kind of content to them.
Okay, great. Thank you, Barbara. We have a last question here. How to teach students use low tech resources?
Well, that is a really good question that I think a lot of people are struggling with. And I think the best thing that can be done is to do things like using a choice board. Here is one that I put on. I think these are, let me see if I can bring this up real quickly. These are bingo board ideas so that you could give this kind of choice board in a piece of paper to the students, somehow get that to them. And they can choose different things that they can do throughout the week. And then they can take pictures of themselves doing it and send those to you, or work on their packet offline and then make sure that that packet gets back to you somehow. So far, those are some of the best things that have come across in the discussions that I've been involved with.
Okay, thank you. So Raimundo has news for the participants. So thank you, Dr. Noel, for sharing your expertise with us. And thank you, everyone, for your participation in this keynote. Before you have our break for lunch, Raimundo asked to have a short conversation with you.
Okay, folks. Thank you, Dr. Barbara Noel. Beautiful presentation. You brought light and insight to many of our things concerning teaching and learning. Thank you, folks. I would like to tell you that we are waiting for the links. I am very excited that we have many participants, and we kindly ask you to wait for the links before 2 o'clock. The guys are preparing the links, and you should follow the Fábrica dos Gênios. Fábrica de Gênio is the host, and they have the link and available in the description now. So we are going to put the WhatsApp group and this link you have to be there to see the workshop links we are going to put before 2 o'clock, not now, but we wait you there by 2, okay? And the links will be there available to all of you. We want to make sure that uh, 2 o'clock the group is split in two. One group is going to be with Barbara, and another group will be with Jennifer. And so we continue. So the workshops will be in groups of two. So you can choose your topic for the next 4 hours. Okay. Thank you so much, folks.
The U.S. Department of State's Office of English Language Programs has reached over 900,000 participants in over 100 countries through the American English eTeacher program. This program has offered English teaching professionals around the world the opportunity to take innovative online courses and professional development workshops created by U.S. universities and TESOL professionals. Over the years, this program has expanded to include English language educators worldwide, and also professionals in the fields of journalism, health, peacekeeping, and disaster management. As the demand for English education increases, this program will continue to expand to address current learning needs through innovative online programming. As this program develops, so too will the network of learners, educators, and professionals. Without further ado, we'd like to introduce our newly named program, the Online Professional English Network, OPEN.
If you are here, it's probably because you're an English teacher with something to share or learn. Maybe you're looking for activities and techniques you can use with your students. If there's something about English language teaching you would like to share or learn, then English Teaching Forum is for you. You can now read the latest issue of Forum online. This issue features articles about the pragmatics of complaining and setting up a successful book club. You'll also learn how to play a business English game and much, much more. You can download and read the new issue of Forum at americanenglish.state.gov. English Teaching Forum, a quarterly journal by English teachers for English teachers.
The U.S. Department of State offers many fun, engaging, and free online resources for English language students and teachers. Let's learn more about these resources. One of the best places to find our free American English content and resources is through our social media platforms. Check out our American English at State Facebook page, where you can find daily graphics and weekly videos for you and your students. For teachers, there's also the American English for Educators page, where we share articles and host daily discussions. On this page, We also offer the free American English Live program, a series of free live professional development workshops for teachers. You'll learn about English language teaching techniques and methodologies and receive a digital badge of completion after attending each session. After you accumulate 4 badges, you can get an e-certificate of completion. Check out the events page to stay tuned for these sessions. Let's take a quick listen to one of our most recent sessions on movement in the classroom.
Or let's try a very simple question like, is coffee good for you? Everyone has an opinion, maybe. But the teacher calls on one person, maybe 2. We can phrase this so that everybody has to answer. For example, is coffee good for you? Stand up if you agree.
In addition to our live events and graphics on our Facebook pages, the American English YouTube channel provides many free videos for teachers and students to view and share. Learn about irregular verbs and American English idioms and watch professional development webinars for teachers. Have you ever visited the American English website? As you can see, it offers many free materials and resources on American English language and culture for teachers and students. Let's check out some of the most popular resources on our website. Activate Games for Learning American English offers free downloadable games that promote fun and student-centered learning. And Web Resources for English Language Teaching and Learning provides information on great online tools for language teaching. And while you're on our website, don't forget to check out English Teaching Forum. English Teaching Forum is a peer-reviewed journal by and for English language teachers around the world. Check it out for ideas for the classroom and tips for professional development. Also be sure to check out our free MOOCs for professional development. MOOCs, or Massive Open Online Courses, are actual online university courses developed by top American universities. You can study topics such as using educational technology and integrating critical thinking. Check this page regularly for information on upcoming course offerings and earn a digital badge upon your completion of each course. So those are just some of the U.S. State Department's free resources for English students and teachers. We hope you find all of these free resources helpful for your classroom. And please follow us on Facebook or YouTube to keep updated on all the latest, or email us at americanenglish@state.gov. Thank you for watching.
Hi, this is Jennifer again with Relo Brazil in a Minute. One of the questions that we get frequently is, what is Relo Brazil? The Regional English Language Office, or RELO, is one of 25 offices supported by the U.S. Department of State worldwide. Here in Brazil, we work with the embassy and the consulates to promote English language learning and teaching as part of our public diplomacy efforts. We know that English opens so many doors to exploring the United States, studying abroad, scientific exchanges, different kinds of workplaces and jobs, as well as exploration of different sources of information. And we're very proud to work with teachers and learners in our everyday mission in Relo, Brazil.